So this video is going to look at modern technology and its impact on participation. So on your specification, there's two things you've got to know. You've got to know how modern technology has affected elite performance and also general participation. So there's certain things you've got to be able to talk about. They want to know how has it affected access, facilities, equipment, monitoring of exercise and safety for both elite performers and general participation. Then also we're going to look at the extent to which modern technology has limited or reduced participation. So these look about improving, the top 2 bullet points, improving participation for these groups. And we've also got to know how technology has reduced participation as well. So when we're looking at this video, you've got to think technology in sport refers to any recent technical advances that impact upon sport. That could be for participants or spectators. So that's what technology means. It's recent technological advances. So we're going to start off by looking at elite sport. And remember, we've got these 5 key things to be looking at. We're going to go through each one of them and try and give you a few examples. So access for elite performance mainly refers to disabled athletes. Disabled athletes now have greater access to elite performance training because of an adapted sports environment. Athletes with disabilities can now participate with the aid of prosthetic limbs. They're designed with lightweight materials and are made to be bespoke for each individual athlete. So the Cheetah was the first sports foot of its kind that was launched back in 1996. And the prosthetics have now just got far more advanced. And this technology has increased the participation of disabled athletes in a variety of different activities and sports, especially amputees. And it's opened up the possibility for disabled athletes to also compete against able-bodied athletes in the same events. So regarding prosthetics, a prosthetic, remember, is an artificial device that substitutes or supplements a defective part of the body. So someone who has had a sort of above knee or below knee amputation, they could put on a prosthetic leg and be able to use that to run. Springlite, for example, very famous company, these were created for athletes who'd lost a lower limb. The reduced mass meant it was supple enough for sprinters and provides some shock absorption properties as well for marathon runners. So they can be made for different sports. You've also got wheelchairs that have been adapted for elite performers. They can either be, you've got sharply slanted back wheels for tennis players so they can move quickly and turn quickly on the court for more agility. And they've made wheelchairs differently for different sports, lightweight for tennis, but strong reinforced frames for wheelchair rugby, which have a lot of impact on them. So disabled athletes, you've also got technology has improved their access to buildings. They've now got more wheelchair ramps, swimming pool hoists. So it's made their participation in sport, especially at an elite level, far more easy. The next thing we're going to look at are how facilities have improved. Training facilities are now state-of-the-art buildings, and they're designed with this sole focus to improve an athlete in that sport. If you look here, we've got the English Institute of Sport at Sheffield, focusing on athletics and the indoor track, and you can see all the different facilities there for the different athletics events. And the EIS is a high performance centre, remember, and it's important for athletic development. Remember, they also work with coaches, and it's here where they'll be doing all those different things and research for technology to be used in athletics. Regarding facilities as well, in 2009, Bisham Abbey, the National Sports Centre, invested £2 million into elite training and rehabilitation to help athletes prepare for the 2012 Olympics. They built high-performance gym, training agility area, 30-metre indoor track, strength and conditioning machines, loads of video analysis equipment and rehab suites, and the latest sports science equipment for rowers, canoeists and hockey players. So all of that money was invested simply to help prepare for the 2012 Olympics. You've also got simulated competitive environments as well, surf simulators, bobsleigh runs, indoor sea slopes. All these facilities can be used by elite performers, so they don't necessarily have to travel to the coast to do surfing. They can use a surf simulator instead. Regarding equipment, research and technology has altered sporting equipment to make performances far faster and aid people's recovery. So players who are recovering from an injury can put inside oxygen tents And the altitude chambers can stimulate altitude and bring about changes in athletes' oxygen carrying capacity. And that's been found to have a real positive effect on their recovery from injury. You've also got analysis and understanding has increased. If you look at coaches, they can use DVDs, other playback and biomechanical feedback and video analysis to help athletes improve even further. So still sticking on equipment, assessing if someone has the potential to play at an elite level, so the talent identification, they've got to have the right physiological makeup to become an elite rower. And we use a variety of different equipment in that talent identification. We might do testing on their bone density, internal body fat, health screening devices. You also got precision hydration, which is used by a number of Premier League clubs. This technology can assess the sweat of players, so you can calculate how much sodium a player needs during a match. And each player then will have their own individual bottle for a game. So if you look at Wolves, they do this a lot. Each player has their own individual bottle that they drink from because the water in that has a certain amount of sodium linked to how much sodium or sweat they produce during a match. There's loads of other examples as well. You've got bodysuits in athletics and swimming to make you more aerodynamic, graphite and titanium equipment to make bikes, tennis rackets that little bit lighter, modern footballs now that look at having better swerve and curve on them, streamlined cycling helmets to make you more aerodynamic. There is a lot of technology out there, and especially equipment, making sports performance even better than it was. So this is one great example to bring up in an exam, the wind tunnel. So cyclists and F1 cars use this an awful lot to improve their technique, to reduce drag or air resistance. It makes them more streamlined and aerodynamic. And any external factors, they do see there is a bit of a less aerodynamic part of the equipment or bike, then they can start to change that. However, there are obviously issues because this is a very expensive thing to do, so it's not always going to be available to all athletes from all parts of the world. And even the data you get from it is going to need really highly qualified professionals in order to analyze it. And that's, again, not going to be available to all developing countries. The next thing we need to look at is monitoring exercise. So with monitoring exercise, we can monitor exercise intensity and heart rates using heart rate monitors. And it allows clubs to identify strengths and weaknesses of players. Can do lots of testing in labs, looking at treadmills if they're running, or rowing machines, or static bikes if they're cyclists. And we also got a good example here of the Tour de France in 2015, where cyclists had miniature GPS computers that tracked all their speed, distance covered, and the calories burnt. So we could really monitor how much they were doing. GPS in football, you see a lot of these footballers wearing these little vests. They all contain a little GPS tracker, so it allows coaches to look at the strengths and weaknesses of a player and monitor their progress. It also lets them see how effective their training programs are being, because if an athlete isn't running as much as they were before a training program, then something probably needs to be changed. It also can monitor their performance during matches, the speed, the distance, their heart rate, recovery time. So it can help coaches with their team selection issues if they've got any. Regarding safety, athletes are also able to compete in a safe environment thanks to advances in technology, helmets and other protective clothing. A big thing with safety is 3D lab-based gait analysis, so looking at errors in athletes' running style that could prevent any potential future injuries. So when they do this, they have about 12 different cameras, and the data is compared to about 3,000 uninjured athletes who are stored on the computer, and then you can adapt the athlete's running style if needed. And you get elite marathon runners. You've got ASICS who develop specialized running shoes for elite marathon runners based on their individual foot shape, leg alignment, their running technique. So that, again, will stop any injuries occurring there. Regarding safety as well, in 2014 you had a death of an Australian test batsman called Philip Hughes, where a ball struck him right at the top of the neck. And improvements were made to cricket helmets. In any high exertion activities, you've got like desert marathons, for example, athletes can take ingestible computers that will constantly transmit data on things such as blood pressure, body temperature, etc. So it can be monitored during the event. And here you go, you've got the Phil Hughes who died when the ball hit him. You can see the ball just going underneath the cricket helmet here, which eventually killed him. And now we've got sort of neck guards introduced Again, part of modern technology that has improved the safety of elite performers. So now we're going to have a look at general participation, how modern technology has helped with these 5 things. So regarding access, again, it's improved access to building facilities. Disabled athletes, even at a general level now, have swimming pool hoists, lifts, ramps, so they can take up swimming. You've got 24-hour gyms, so the general public can go to the gym a little bit more. You've also got equipment that has made it more safe for disabled athletes. And the advances in any prosthetic limbs now means even general public have got better prosthetic limbs, so they can take part in sport a bit more as well. And also, you've got far more access to social media and things like Joe Wicks and his PE workouts. So people have more access to different workouts via that route as well. Regarding facilities, there's been a load of facilities now that allow people to take part in sport a bit more. It could be floodlights, so you can play football in the evening or cricket in an evening. And synthetic surfaces, that mean you can play no matter what the weather. So you've got these really good advances in facilities that allow the general public to take part in sport a bit more. Regarding equipment, it's now lighter, it's more durable, so people can play sport for longer and not cost them as much. So a few examples of equipment advances to bring in your exam. Running shoes now have these cushioned soles, and you can choose correct trainers following analysis in a running shoe shop. You've got compression clothing for temperature regulation. Tennis rackets are lighter, golf clubs are lighter. All advances in equipment which allow people to take part in sport a bit more. Also with equipment, you've got protective equipment. It's now far lighter and allows you to stay safe a bit more. And it's made learning skills a bit more easier and more enjoyable. You've got low bounce balls for cricket, lighter bicycle frames, wind balls in cricket. So all these things are making participation a bit more easier for people. And technology has also allowed a mass production of equipment. So it's becoming far more cheaper to buy skis or to buy a bike in order to take part in sport. And monitoring exercise, people can always have heart rate monitors now to track their heart rate as they're doing exercise. And modern technology has also improved the safety of performers. Ski and cricket helmets have become far more freely available. And people will have a bit more motivation and are a bit more likely to adhere to exercise programs when they're doing it, especially now we've got all these wearable devices such as Fitbits and fitness apps. You can also boost your motivation to take part in exercise a bit more, as well as monitoring you as well. So the last part of this video is going to look at how it's reduced participation. So everything we've looked at so far has been about improving participation, increasing it. Now we're going to look at reducing participation. So regarding the cost of equipment, it's often very expensive. And this highlights an inequality of access for both elite athletes and recreational. If you're looking at developing countries, they might not be able to afford basic equipment like tennis rackets. So as a result, they rarely produce tennis stars of the future. With disabled athletes in developing countries, they can't afford those top-level prosthetics that you see disabled sprinters wearing, or the wheelchairs needed, so are straight away at an advantage. It's not really a major issue at a general level, as expensive equipment isn't that important, but at an elite level, the cost is going to make a major difference. On top of that, modern technology has brought about a range of different alternatives to sport. So some technology advancements have encouraged people to be more sedentary and less likely to take part in sport. If you look at the use of mobile phones, TV and computer consoles, modern technology has also introduced those, so people are less likely to take part in sport and more likely to do these sort of hobbies instead. So we'll go through this in a bit more detail in the next lesson. Make sure you've got all these notes down.